So we heard in the second reading today a famous line from the first letter of St. Peter where he encourages us to always have a reason for the hope that we have and to be able to give an answer for that hope, and to always do that with gentleness and with respect. Sometimes this line is cited as the reason or the passage that explains what we sometimes call apologetics, giving a defense of our faith, sometimes explaining that our faith is reasonable. And there's certainly something true about that. There's also a sense, I think, that we want to listen to the way that this line says, speak about the hope that you have. And of course, our hope is Jesus Christ risen from the dead. That's what and who we have placed our hope in. That true Christian hope really begins not at the moment when everything looks great, but true Christian hope begins at the moment of crucifixion, when the resurrection still lies ahead. That we would place our hope, that's when hope is really born, if you like. We would place our hope in the promise of Jesus that he made, that he would rise from the dead, and so he does. And that's the basis of our mission as a church. We don't have a mission of our own as a church. We don't have like our own little pet projects or desires or efforts. The mission that we've been given is a share in the mission of Jesus, to share the love that God has given to us and to the world, the love that is poured out from the cross. There's no greater sign of the love that God has for us than Jesus crucified, because it's his love poured out upon the cross that brings us into the reality of his mercy and forgiveness for our sins, but also of his new life that he gives to us, that we are his sons and daughters, because we are sons and daughters of the Father, because Jesus has brought us into a new relationship with him. That's the basis of the church's mission, and it's fitting today that it's the gospel that we have, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight about just plans for the parish going forward. So it's been about 2.5 years since the Missionaries of God's Love have had responsibilities for St. Joseph's, and what we've done since the beginning of that time is we've sought to do, our principle has been to do as much as we can in union with St. Declan's, and the things that need to be separate from St. Declan's we do as separate as well. Obviously that would be separate would be Mass. But our young adults ministry who are gathering here tonight, our youth ministry, the Alpha course that we run, the small group programs that we have, the faith formation offerings, everything that we possibly can do together, we've been doing together. And so what it's come to now, that's the twinning relationship that we've had. And now it's come to the point where we want to formalise that in a formal amalgamation of St. Declan's and St. Joseph's. And so the process up until this point has been that I spoke with the parish council earlier in the year. We have one parish council which has representatives of both St. Joseph's and St. Declan's on it. And I spoke to the parish council before Easter and walked them through the proposal that we would amalgamate. And then we had a time of discernment and prayer, and the parish council came back unanimously in favour of the proposal to amalgamate. Then last Tuesday we brought together the leaders from both parishes and presented the proposal of amalgamation to them as well. And it was received very favourably. And now over this weekend I'm here at St. Joseph's. Next weekend I'll be at St. Declan's walking through this plan to amalgamate the two parishes. What's amalgamation mean at this point? Well, for most of us, we probably won't notice too much of a difference, to be perfectly honest. It's really formalising what we began 2 and a bit years ago. As I said, there are a whole bunch of ministries and things that happen in concert and unity. We've tried to do lots of things together and to build and expand the mission. When the Missionaries of God's Love took responsibility for the parish, when the Archdiocese asked us if we'd do that, our discernment was on the basis of, does it help to advance the mission of the church in this area? And we believe that it does. And so the formalising of what's already happened is important for a few reasons. So one of those things is a very practical one, and that is that we still have two sets of finances, and so they would come together. So we'll bring the two finances of both parishes together. We would continue to do the things that we've been doing to try and continue the ministry and mission across both places. And so much of what you would see happen would normally stay the same. St. Joseph's Church will always be called St. Joseph's Church. You can't change the name of a church. St. Declan's Church would always have the name St. Declan's Church. But the new parish would have a new name. And so at this point, the proposal that we have is that it would be called the Parish of the Transfiguration of Penshurst. So you need a suburb, and Penshurst will be the centre of the admin, which has already come together. But the title Parish of the Transfiguration absolutely speaks to the mural behind me here in the sanctuary, and also speaks to some significant themes at St. Declan's as well. So there are some changes that it does bring. But for our lived experience of the last 2.5 years, it really would be more of what we've been experiencing, more of what we've been doing together. There's another reason why it is important too, and that is that in those last 2.5 years, a number of those ministries that we're doing together, in a certain sense, are being underwritten by St. Declan's. That's because those people who are in key roles in those ministries, our evangelisation coordinator, those who coordinate the ministry of the sick and elderly, our outreach ministries, all of those are paid for from St. Declan's. And so this kind of just makes it an opportunity for going forward for it to be a little bit more just, that we'd be able to make sure that everybody's contributing to the ministry that takes place and to the leadership of the ministries that happen. So what happens next with this process? So the next step will be that there'll be opportunity over the next month or so just to be talking about it, and I'd very happily answer questions after Mass tonight and at other occasions if you'd like to. And then in the following month we'll have some gatherings after Mass, and there'll be an opportunity then, a little survey will go out just asking if you're in favour or not of the amalgamation of the two parishes into one. And you can say yes or no. And you can also say what you think of the proposal of the parish name. And so the feedback from that, in order for me to write to the Archbishop to formally ask him to propose a single parish, about 80% of the parish needs to say, yes, we're in favour of this. Okay? So we're invited to respond to that survey, and if that's favourable, then we'll make that proposal to the Archbishop. I then have to go to the Council of Priests and talk to them about it, and then assuming that that's all goes through smoothly, then the Archbishop will write a letter back to us saying that he has agreed to the amalgamation of the two parishes into one. I think that this is more than just a practical thing or more than just a functional thing. As I said, when we were asked to take responsibility for the ministry here at St. Joseph's, we did it with the idea that we believed that we could build the mission of the church in this place. And I think that we've already begun to see some wonderful signs of that. We've seen signs of growth and development in different ways, building on the strengths and the lovely community that was already here. And so this is an opportunity for us to take our mission forward in this area. And so I believe that it's appropriate and important that we do go ahead with the amalgamation, but I welcome the chance to also talk to you about it, especially if you have questions or misgivings. Can I suggest that this is always going to be at the service of the mission that God has called us to? That we heard in the Gospel today that Jesus calls us to a life of love. As we heard in that second reading for us then to give an account for the hope that we have to share our faith with others. That's at the heart of why we're doing this. So can I commend this to your prayers? Can I commend it to your prayers for wisdom and guidance, yes, but also that the mission would go forward, because that's why we're here, that's what we're called to do, to be the presence of Jesus Christ in this place and in this time.